Well, welcome back everybody to another LEGO Ideas set review. So, as you can tell behind me, we are not in my normal studio. In fact, we're on location at the Lewis Ginter Botanical Garden here in my hometown of Richmond, Virginia, where they've allowed me to come in and, well, host a review. So this is a really special one. Let's get into it. And now we're inside the conservatory and I can finally show you what the LEGO Botanical Garden looks like. I mean, my first impression here is, wow, this is not what I was expecting. It looks quite a bit different from the original LEGO Ideas fan submission model. It's quite a bit shorter, but it's also quite a bit wider. So we'll see how that impacts the set. It might be for the best, it might not be. We'll take a look at that here in just a few minutes. The specs on this one are gonna be 3,762 pieces. It's gonna retail for $330 US, and it'll go on sale November 1st of 2024. I'll leave a link down in the description to lego.com. It's affiliated and helps out the channel if you wanna pick up the set. Also down below, you should definitely check out Lewis Ginter. It is so incredible, showing off a brand new set in such an amazing location. This is a real treat. With that said, there's so many details to go through in the Botanical Garden. If we take a look at the back of the box, you can see this whole thing opens up all three different roof sections. There's a full interior, so many different places to explore, 12 minifigures. I can't wait to take a look at this one. With that said, I do want to thank LEGO for sending this set over for review, and now let's go into the in-depth. So for those of you wondering, I'm actually filming this while Lewis Ginter is closed. They were able to close down the conservatory during after hours, so it was just me inside of this beautiful building where I was able by myself to literally go through the entire garden and see for myself how it compares against the LEGO Botanical Garden set. Now, full disclaimer here, Lewis Ginter has nothing to do with this LEGO set, and in fact, LEGO's come out of their way and said that this botanical garden takes inspiration from many different conservatories from all over the world. I'm just utilizing my local one as a frame of reference to understand what is the differences, if any, between the LEGO set and what a real conservatory is like. It's certainly not every day when you can compare something in reality to an actual LEGO set. A lot of the stuff I review here on the channel is fantasy and doesn't really exist, but something like a botanical garden, well, you can commonly find these, and boy, are they stunning in person. So, what about the actual LEGO set? Well, first off, I gotta say, bringing it here to Lewis Ginter, oh boy, look how beautiful it looks right inside a real conservatory. It looks like it's meant to be. And I think that's a real testament to the designer for basically knocking the design out of the park. It immediately feels like a botanical garden the second that you look at this set. It's beautiful in my opinion, and there's so many details to look through. But before we get to that, let's take a look at, you knew this was coming, a sticker sheet. Sadly, even at $330, there is a small one, just 5 stickers, nothing terrible. You will find a whole bunch of bags of windows, and I'm glad these are separately bagged so that there's no scratches on the pieces. You'll also find 2 32 by 32 stud green base plates, as well as 29 different bags. Inside the instruction booklet, there is a small diagram showing some of the plants of what's what, but not everything. And full disclaimer, I am no botanical nor garden expert, so I am going to make mistakes of maybe a tulip being a rose or vice versa, so please bear with me. But before we get to analyzing all these different plants and flowers, let's take a look at the different minifigures that are included in this set, 12 of them in fact. So first off, we have some gardeners or workers for the garden on either side here with dual molded legs, and then we have in the middle a barista. This is someone who would operate the cafe, and you'll see that here shortly. Next, we have a mom and her son, as well as a grandpa with her granddaughter. After that, we have some dual molded faces on these characters, which look pretty funny. You can see the son's a little upset. Maybe he picked a flower that he shouldn't have, or who knows what's happening here. You can basically create your own stories. Finally, for the last minifigures, we have someone who is visually impaired. We have the owner of the botanical garden. We have a grandma and grandpa. And then we also have a photographer who might just be a sig fig of the designer who worked on this set. Very minor nitpick, but I do wish there was a red stud on that camera lens for the lens itself. You know if you know. So now turning our attention to the actual botanical garden. First off, in the very front, in front of this walkway here, we have 2 flower beds with different flowers. You could say these are daffodils or roses. I'm honestly not sure, but they probably are tulips right here. These are ice cream tulips, I believe. And then we have regular tulips here in the back, which I believe is a pretty new Lego piece. The actual flower piece that's being utilized off to the left there in red is fairly new. We also have a little arbor there with some vines growing up it. We have some lights around the garden, which I love those little details. We have a bird bath in the center here, which I think looks beautiful on this fountain. Little yellow bird as well. There's some studs to place minifigures on the walkway. We have a little dark green tree. On the opposite side, it's pretty much the same for the flower beds here in the front. You also notice they're utilizing the banana peel piece in green for the first time, which I thought was really cool. We also have, again, some more different flowers off to the side here. I love how they have some nice details around the flower beds, utilizing those 1x2 curved tiles to a nice effect. We also have a Japanese maple right here in the center, and then off to the right, we have a little birdie just chilling out as well. So 2 birds now, and there's a third in the back. Next, just taking a look at some of the design techniques, utilizing some really cool, relatively new Lego pieces being utilized to nice effects here, especially for the guardrails off to the front. I especially love this part's usage of using a little Lego heart for design aesthetics. Opening up the front doors on either side, you'll notice there's some handles. And then what about getting into this set? Well, 3 different roof sections come apart. You have this giant middle roof, which just easily comes off. It's only connected by a few studs. And then you have 2 smaller sections on either side. And then the designer went a step further, and there's removable walls to get your hands into those tight spaces. Well, if only the X Mansion had that. Now, as we take a top-down view of the botanical garden, you'll quickly notice that there are 2 giant trees that are sticking out, the real focal points of the midsection of the botanical garden. But these, thankfully, are fully removable, so you can get your hands down in there and place minifigures and, well, explore things. You'll notice inside where those trees go, there are some color coordination so you don't mismatch the trees by accident. Now, taking a closer look at one of these giant trees, first up we have the silver-leaved mountain gum. This is a really cool design. I love that sand green bamboo piece on the top. And then next we have something called the date palm tree, which I actually also really love this design. I love the Technic gears being utilized for the spine of the tree. Now, as for when you enter through the doors of the botanical garden, there is a little cash register off to the right side, and this has a little special computer with a little sticker on it. There's a little ticket, a 4-leaf clover hiding underneath the desk, and these 4-leaf clovers are hidden throughout the build as well. Off to the left, you'll notice there is a little plant sign here, and this is actually very common to see in botanical gardens. When I was at Lewis Ginter, I noticed, well, these are extremely important for distinguishing what is what as you're going through the gardens. It's extremely important, and I'm glad this is a printed 1x1 tile piece. Now, next to the register, hanging on the wall, are some headphones for the minifigures to use for an audio tour. And then here off to the right side, we get into some more plants, a coffee plant as well as an anthurium, which I think are really cool. On the opposite side, we have some bamboo as well as some funny looking plants as well. Then we have this pretty large vine that's kind of spanning over the cash register, which I think is really cool, though I wish it was a little bit more dense to kind of get the point across. Next here, I believe this is supposed to be a plum flower as well as an angel's trumpet, and then we have a birds of paradise plant as well. After that, we have a little corpsey flower, is I think how you pronounce it. We have some fungi off to the right, and we have, of course, the staircase that leads to the upper deck to look at all the different flowers for a better view, the top-down angle. Now, one of the next sections is something called the arid garden. This is basically succulents or cacti style plants here. There's a nice staircase leading down to it. It's a fairly small section with some nice looking plants here. You'll notice some vents off to the side there. That's very accurate. And like as I showed earlier, there is a removable wall here to get your hands in there and place figures. On the back section, there's a little garden hose with some tools and a bucket. And I love that the hose is a nice parts usage from the Avatar sets. And I love the fact that you can make the gardener scared of either the leaf blower or the squirrel. Up to you. Now, making our way to the opposite end of the botanical garden, we have a cafe now, and just like the other side, you can remove this wall so you can get your hands in there. You can see it's a fully stocked cafe with some donuts up at the front. We have some sweets on the counter, different little pumps to add syrup to your coffee. I love that there's an espresso machine. There's a little sign on the wall. There is so many little details in such a small space, and of course, you have a computer to check out customers.
Finally, there is a door that leads out to the back, which is a nice sitting area to enjoy your sweets or coffee. Then taking a look at this roof here, you'll notice there is a brand new Lego element for this set, which is this corner window, which is actually pretty sweet and very useful. And then underneath here, you'll find another bird. So there's actually 4 in total, 3 different color types, 4 birds in all. And he's made a little nest up under a light, which I think is pretty cute. Now, as for the main section of the botanical garden, the roof here is giant. It's also utilizing another brand new 1x5 arch piece. So there's 2 brand new elements inside this set, which is not always common in sets like this. So that was really cool to see. But there's so many different details when you close it all up, whether you open it. This is such an enjoyable set. And that's not even mentioning the fact that I probably skipped over at least a dozen other flower types. Now, I know I've given the botanical garden high praise up until this point, but there is one big downside. This is not a modular set that most fans were expecting it to be. It does not connect into the system, though to be fair, it's fairly easy to modify this, slap on some Technic pieces off to the side, or raise up the entire build by a brick and do the mill system, up to you. And you can see here, you can still fit the botanical garden right alongside other modular buildings. It does actually look pretty in place, surprisingly. I didn't expect this, and especially if you have the greengrocer and Parisian restaurant, you know, those green kind of colors matching with the botanical garden really make this come alive. And this does make it a little bit sour over the fact that Lego didn't include the modular pieces needed to connect right out of the box to these buildings, especially when you consider it's $330. Now, probably the set you really want to see alongside the botanical garden, the other botanical garden, the Lego Friends set, which I thought was a fantastic build that came out over a year ago now. And you can see that there's some fairly similar design aspects. The windows are both sand green, while the arches are different. For example, on the bigger botanical set, they're fairly similar. They're both very much botanical garden. In fact, if you put the two side by side, they kind of look like they blend into each other. Now, where the biggest differences are here, other than the price tag, is the fact that one is completely open on one side, kind of unfinished, whereas the actual bigger 18 plus Lego Ideas Botanical Garden is fully finished. I also have to admit, I think I like the plant designs more in the Lego Friends Botanical Garden than the other Botanical Garden, which is saying a lot. I'm surprised that these flowers look that good comparative to the bigger garden. I wish some of these designs were integrated in the bigger set, but regardless, it does make the two sets different, so they're not exactly the same, so you could look at it that way. And you also have to remember this is an $80 set versus a $330 set. But what if we compare another $330 set to the Botanical Garden? This is what I just reviewed last week, which was the X Mansion. This had just under 3,000 pieces, also retails for $330. This is a Marvel IP license set, so that's why it's so much more expensive with far less pieces. But still, the Botanical Garden is a full half base plate bigger. It's sized appropriately, whereas my biggest complaint with the X Mansion is it didn't feel big at all. It's the complete opposite with the Botanical Garden. I think it's the perfect size, plenty of room to get your hands inside the set and explore. And while the build wasn't anything to write home about, it was pretty traditional Lego building styles, no crazy techniques. I think the overall design just knocks it out of the park for what a Botanical Garden should be.
I gotta say, it smells so good in here. I think I'm in like a tropical zone or something like that. It's a little on the humid side, but that's all right. Anyhow, getting back to the Lego Botanical Garden set, here are my final thoughts on this one, guys. First off, I love the set. I think it's gorgeous looking. Maybe it's not quite what some of you imagined, but I gotta say, it's well thought out. I love every room. All the details you would want in such a set are here. It's just a little on the pricier side. $330 is a lot of money. Granted, you're getting 3,800 pieces, so it's a decent price per piece ratio for a non-licensed set. I think $300 personally would have been the sweet spot for this one. Of course, we also have to talk about the fact that it isn't a modular building like a lot of people were hoping for. It doesn't connect into the other modular sets, but you can easily modify that by putting some Technic pieces on the side or building up by like a brick or so, you know, utilizing the mill system. So that's something you could fairly easily modify if that's what you want to do. I can see why Lego out of the box didn't make it a modular building, because it's hard to imagine two city buildings side by side like this. It doesn't quite work. You'd want this to be, it's like own separate thing in your Lego city. At least that's what I would personally do. So I understand the approach they went with for this one. And finally, it's super duper detailed. Like, it is so accurate to what a real conservatory is like inside the Lego set. It's crazy to kind of see the real thing and have the set on hand and really compare the two. And it's incredible how well this has been executed. So with that said, I don't think I can personally recommend it at its full retail price. If you can get it for $300 or less, you have to pick up this one. I do think it's such a gorgeous set. If you have any remote interest in the Lego Botanical Garden sets, whether you're picking up the flower sets or maybe you also pick up that Lego Friends set, this one is gonna be a real treat. The build experience was fantastic. I had a blast building this one. So lastly, of course, I do want to thank Lewis Ginter for letting me host my review here in the gardens of the conservatory. This was an incredible experience that was so last minute. I literally did not think this was going to happen. This was not something Lego planned. This is something I just randomly came up with, emailed the marketing manager of Lewis Ginter, and it just so happened to work out. So what a great coincidence. And of course, I do want to thank Lego for sending this set over for review. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. You're going to be picking up the Botanical Garden come November 1st. I hope you guys have a great, wonderful day, and I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.